Hello everyone, welcome to the Hindu analysis for 5th February 2021. Let us start with the first article. 1 in 5 Indians exposed to novel coronavirus according to a recent Sero survey. Sero survey is done by government to gauge what percent of the population has already been exposed to the coronavirus but did not get reported or tested. So this shows, or this Sero survey gives an approximate number or percentage to the government or the administering agencies to see whether a level of herd immunity has been attained in India or not. According to the recent one, nearly 1 in 5 Indians have been infected with SARS-CoV-2 coronavirus until December 2020. This is a sharp threefold increase since a last Sero survey was conducted in the August of last year. So the test was conducted by ICMR. Multiple parameters were considered for it. Primarily healthcare workers were tested. In the last Sero survey that was conducted in August, close to 7,000 to 10,000 primary healthcare workers or frontline workers were tested. This time a mix of general population was also been added to the Sero survey. So the third Sero, as I said earlier, this was conducted by ICMR, and the results were also, though not officially published in any peer-reviewed magazines or publications, this data that has been released shows a positive trend of declining of cases in India. Though initially they were very fearful that India would be the worst affected country after China in terms of deaths and infection rates, it seems that India fared better than many other countries. So what is the message according to this? The message is that a large portion of the population remains vulnerable. Vaccines are necessary and there can be no complacency with regard to mask and social distance along with hand hygiene. Though it shows that the percentage of people who have already been exposed to the coronavirus and have antibodies in them, still a large portion of our population is still vulnerable, mainly due to few factors such as pre-existing conditions, age and underlying conditions, and also general hygiene. So here the ICMR is saying, though these numbers are promising, we have to be still careful by maintaining all the protocols that we have been following since the lockdown measures have started. Those are wearing masks, maintaining a 6 feet or 2 meter distance, and washing your hands regularly. So this survey was conducted in 70 districts across 21 states. So the data, when you boil it down, it clearly shows that approximately 270 million may have been exposed to the virus. And as earlier thought, children are not immune to this virus. Yes, they get the virus, but they don't get as much as sick as the adults, but they still transmit the virus to adults or to other children. That is where the Goldilocks zone lies with the coronavirus in terms of children or minor infections. So coming back to the children immunology, several studies have now established this, that the children are much less likely to be severely sick, but they can be infectious, meaning if they get virus, they don't get sick, or the intensity of the sickness is not as much as the adults, but they still be able to transfer virus or give virus from their body to other person. So again, there is little bit of skepticism regarding this. Experts, however, have previously noted that Sero surveys don't capture the extent of the spread, and the other modeling studies have shown that as much as 50% of the population may have been exposed. Though they are expressing skepticism at the Sero survey that was conducted or the model that has been used to scale up with the numbers, they still say that the number might be higher or lesser. But in this particular case, as much as 50% of the population may have already been exposed to some strain of coronavirus. Coming to the next article, So yesterday the central government in the budget came out with a proposal to impose taxation on People's Provident Fund (EPF). There is certain conditions where if a person's EPF is exceeding 2.5 lakh per annum, the government is going to impose some percentage of taxation on their EPF. Till now, the policy has been that irrespective of the amount that they are adding into their EPF yearly, there is no additional taxation on their EPF. Let us say if the person is depositing 1 crore rupees per month, that 1 crore will not attract taxation from the government. This the government wants to change because there is a little bit problem with high net worth individuals, HNIs. So there are 1.23 lakh high net worth individuals are tapping the EPF for tax-free income. So according to the government statistics, highest contributor has a staggering 1.3 crore EPF balance, followed by two others with 86 crores. So the average EPF of any employee, government employee or private employee who is earning more than 50,000, in order to be eligible for the EPF to be applied to him, at the end of their tenure, by maximum number, on an average they get only 30 to 40 lakhs. That is after they serve for 25 years or 30 years, maybe more in some cases. But some high net worth individuals have already amassed 1.3 crore in their EPF savings fund. So there is a discrepancy between a low net worth individual and a high net worth individual enjoying the tax benefits of EPF. In the other case, though they are capable of paying the taxes, they are using this loophole to save some more money. This is what the government wants to avoid and earn some money out of it. So what is EPF? Both employer and employee contribute 12% of employee's monthly salary, basic wages plus DNS allowance, to the Employees Provident Fund. Employees Provident Fund organization is the organization that takes care of an employee's EPF. So the budget currently, the scheme or the proposal that union budget had introduced is they want to tax the income of employees PF contributions over 2.5 lakh a year. If the employee deposits more than 2.5 lakh a year into their EPF account, the amount that has been deposited into their EPF accounts will automatically attract tax from the central government. There is a lot of pushback to it, but the government has come out and said that if the earning is over 50 lakhs a year, the persons with high net worth who are adding more and more money into their EPFs are actually getting tax benefits indirectly by using this loophole. This is what the government wants to avoid. Coming to the next article, US government calls for dialogue. This is in response to the criticism to the 3 farm laws from the US State Department. So the US State Department yesterday released their statement regarding the current agitations or farmer protests along with the 3 farm laws. The statement says that though we are closely monitoring the situation that is happening on the ground, we welcome whatever the changes or steps that the government of India is taking to open up the agricultural market for better. All while they are also saying that we always support expression of dissent or freedom to protest and all, but at the end of it they say that they are welcoming the steps that the government of India has taken through the 3 farm laws to enhance the efficiency of markets. So they also acknowledge the steps taken by both the parties to engage in dialogue, along with hoping for better management or better consultation process without leading to violence or mistrust. That is what the US state government, that is the Biden administration, is saying regarding the farmers protesting India, which is a very balanced statement from the US State Department, meaning that though they are observing closely, they are going to stay away for now. Coming to the next article, Delhi police to probe international conspiracy. So, if you have been following news since yesterday, child environmental activist Greta Thunberg sent out a tweet supporting the farmers' protest. Along with the tweet, in an additional tweet, she urged or implored her followers to take up this issue on a frontline basis and shared a toolkit along with it. A toolkit is something where this was a Google Drive link which had all the material that the followers were supposed to post in supporting farmers and protesting against the government of India. So, when the toolkit was opened, when the toolkit was shared widely, people quickly found out that the content of toolkit had large percentage of anti-India sentiments and pro-Khalistan rhetoric, along with lot of anti-government material. She quickly deleted it, but the Delhi government nonetheless filed an FIR regarding the international conspiracy on the basis that there was an international conspiracy to defame India. The officer said the Twitter handle that shared toolkit document but deleted it later, it was apparently created by an allegedly pro-Khalistan organization, Poetic Justice Foundation, which is an organization that has some pro-Palestini material on their Twitter and their websites. So the police are saying we have registered and we are going to investigate, but we are not naming the person who has tweeted the link, but we are only going after the people who created the toolkit in itself. So we have to see how this is going to play out again, because it is a very much developing news. Coming to the next article, Centre ready to introduce bill defining Delhi government and governor powers. So the tussle between the governor's office and Delhi government has been going on since Aam Aadmi Party came into power. Both the governor's office and the chief minister's office have been fighting over powers that they were given. The chief minister's office, meaning the chief minister and the government of Delhi, is accusing the governor of misusing his powers and overreaching the authority that has been vested in him. The governor is saying that there are certain aspects that the chief minister or the Delhi government doesn't have any say in whatsoever, and he has overall authority over the governance in Delhi. So this power struggle between the state government, Delhi government, and the governor's office reached the steps of the court. So in 2019, the Apex Court gave out a judgment clearly defining the roles of both the governor's office and the chief minister's office, except service matters. That was reserved for a constitutional Supreme Court bench. Now, in accordance with the 2019 judgment, the Ministry of Home Affairs is about to introduce a legislation in the budget session of Parliament for the amendment of 1991 Act pertaining to the powers and functions of the Delhi government and Lieutenant Governor. So the proposed legislation received Union Cabinet's approval yesterday. Now through this bill, the government of India, that is the central government, wants to clearly delineate or clear all the apprehensions and misapprehensions regarding the powers of the Delhi governor and the Delhi government, coming out with a clear set of rules regarding what are the powers of the governor here, what are the powers of the chief minister. But likely the bill will clearly define, as I said earlier, powers of the lieutenant governor and the Delhi government on the lines of the Supreme Court judgment from the February 2019 case. But when you get to the draft of it, it seems like it is going to give more teeth to the Lieutenant Governor's office. Again, it is going to vest more powers in the hands of the governor of the UT of Delhi, instead of the state government of elected government of the Delhi. Coming to the next article, the way forward in Myanmar. So the relationship between India and Myanmar is a little bit complicated one. Myanmar shares a border with us, and largely the border has been settled. Most of it is almost except 2 or 3 areas, if I am not wrong. Sorry, the border is already clearly demarcated. We have no border issues mostly with Myanmar. There are some internal here and there, but nothing was sort of as China and Nepal and Pakistan. And the other dimension with Myanmar is our internal security, where in the cases of earlier in the past, our security agencies worked closely with the military of Myanmar to tackle or weed out terrorist organizations that were carrying terrorist activities in Myanmar territory against India. What these terrorists or organizations used to do, they used to infiltrate into India, carry out their attacks in the northeastern states, and run away and hid in the jungles of Myanmar. Through a very comprehensive dialogue and diplomatic negotiations, our government persuaded the military of Myanmar to take concrete actions to weed out those terrorist organizations that were based in the territory of Myanmar. To a great extent, it was successful. The military junta that was ruling Myanmar in the past, our government successfully negotiated terms in which our security special forces along with the Myanmar special forces carried out continuous raids against their terrorist training camps. At the end of it, it was a great success for both of our security forces, where we were able to dismantle multiple terrorist training camps and terrorist headquarters that were clearly hiding in Myanmar forest. Now come to the current time. After much of international persuasion and internal protesting and all, Myanmar transitioned from military dictatorship to a democratic country. Since last week, the democratic experiment seems to have been failed, because the military dictatorship carried out a coup and took back control from the elected democratic government into the hands of military leadership. So India, though we profess or we express deep concern and watch closely, we cannot say anything, because in the past we have dealt with both the government, democratically elected government, and to a greater extent with the military junta that was controlling the Myanmar to help us in weeding out those terrorist organizations. So for us to be very reactive in this context is very dangerous and not a positive thing for us, because if the relations with the military go bad, there is a scope that they might again help in breed terrorist organizations in their territory against India, which India cannot afford as of now. So India has been very cautious with how they are going to approach the current coup parameters or situation in Myanmar. So India has certain ways, but there is also this international community that has to come together and solve this problem. And what is the way that they can do this? So what is the current situation? So the coup in Myanmar coincided with the first month of Biden administration in the United States, which has promised to bring back the values of democracy and respect for human rights to the core of US foreign policy. This is a challenge in front of the current Biden administration. He promised that he is going to engage proactively with all nations on the basis of human rights and human decency. But though the democratically elected government was overthrown, Biden administration has to approach this in a critical and realistic manner. So what are the challenges here? So China, Thailand and Singapore are the key trading partners of Myanmar. The military has been able to economically withstand sanctions by striking deals with Asian countries in the past. Sanctions are unlikely to bring any major political change. One of the biggest tools in the arsenal of developed nations is threat to impose sanctions on countries that are not listening to their word. US, Russia, UK, all these countries threaten sanctions on India. US is also threatening sanctions on India with CATSA sanctions if India goes ahead and purchases more weapons from Russia. That is a constant threat. We are also very most developing countries and underdeveloping countries are very much well aware of economic sanctions from developing nations, because they know the effect of economic sanctions will have in their domestic and manufacturing markets. Economically, the country might be killed. But in the case of Myanmar, it is not particularly dependent on the economic help from the Western countries, because when the military was in power, they developed very deep trade deals with South Asian countries, meaning China, Thailand, Singapore. According to a recent study, Singapore was the highest contributor of foreign direct investment in Myanmar, with close to 43,000 crores investing in manufacturing sector in Myanmar. So the sanctions, that if America comes out and says that we are going to impose sanctions, the military dictatorship that is in Myanmar may not care less, because they are not entirely dependent on the economy of, or the help of, or the trade with Western countries. So there is a silver lining. The limited European trade with Myanmar that has started after 2010 benefits the poor. So the European Union's everything but arms scheme targets the poor in Myanmar garment industry. The scheme allows the world's least developed countries such as Myanmar to export more goods to EU for free of duties. Whatever the trade that Myanmar is doing with European is also of very insignificant level. So there is an impossible scenario where Western countries cannot impose sanctions on Myanmar to revert back to a democratic country. And to a little extent, Indian hands are also tied because of internal security issues and border issues. So what is the current scenario in Myanmar? Currently, the military dictatorships or military generals who control Myanmar are acting with impunity, because they very well know that they are not going to get punished for what they are doing, because the previous generals who were part of military junta who controlled Myanmar till a government was structured, they all got away without any punishments. Particularly during the 2017 Rohingya crisis, senior military officials brazenly exploited social media to mobilize public support for the brutality against Rohingyas. To this day, none of these generals faced any punishment, or they were even been arrested once. So they are acting with impunity. So what is the way forward? A critical international player in Myanmar is China. China has appointed specific envoys for Asian affairs who are de facto working on Myanmar-Chinese relations since 2013. But here the international community falls behind. So the international community, particularly the West, has no factor in Chinese multi-layered influence of Myanmar. Since the democratic government was installed, the Western countries dismantled any organizations or any structures that were in place to engage with the Myanmar on a daily basis, on a policy based. There the Chinese came in and set up institutions, and they have been in touch with the Myanmar counterparts since 2013, filling the void that was left when the West pulled out. So when you look at the situation on the ground today, Chinese have more influence and say in the internal domestic politics and policies of Myanmar than any other country. So now the expectation that Myanmar will see a nationwide protest against the coup should also be examined, because there are these sectarian lines where the majority of the population, or the majority is Bamar community, that occupies major percentage of population. Though it supported NDL, that is the National Democratic Party, which won the elections, Aung San Suu Kyi's party, may not oppose the military coup on the fear of retaliation. So in the current scenario, the military will continue to exploit ethnic and religious fault lines. So 3 things to be observed from here: the influence of China, the lack of influence of West over Myanmar, and the internal fault lines that are going to be ruptured in the coming days. Coming to the next article, HAL planning to export light combat aircraft. So after signing the 83 LAC's contract, Defense Minister made a strong pitch for collaboration among countries in the Indian Ocean region, while offering to supply a range of weapon systems to them and also helping build capacities of the partner countries. Yesterday, India opened up and said that we are going to sell our indigenously developed weapon systems to Indian Ocean region countries. They may be helicopters, they may be fighter aircrafts, they may be missiles, they may be ships, they may be submarines in the future also. But we are going to help them build their capacities, and we are also will be from now on selling all our weapon systems to those countries. That is a good step in the sense that we are trying to integrate our weapon systems into other militaries and navies and air forces, so that in the future, in case of a multi-layered or multi-domained war, these countries are in the same ecosystems, and it will help India further its agenda. Along to amend this, the Hindustan Aeronautics Limited is also actively looking for exports of Tejas light combat aircraft, with countries in Southeast Asia and West Asia showing interest in buying it. So HAL also said that since the Indian government order has been placed, multiple other South Asian and West Asian countries have been showing interest, particularly in the LAC. So 2 things. One is the Atmanirbhar initiative, because the production of LAC takes place in India. 2, by the exports of LAC, we can show that we are technologically capable to manufacture, build and develop modern weapon systems. 3, by helping capacity building and integrating with Indian infrastructure and Indian weapon systems in the Indian Ocean region, we have a better chance of countering Chinese influence or some other form of aggression in Indian Ocean region. Coming over to our neighbor Nepal, over 200 arrested in Nepal Strike. So yesterday more than 200 people were arrested in the protests taken out by the Prachanda faction of the Communist Party. You are well aware there has been a fracture in the Nepalese Communist Party, where the party has been split into 2 factions, Prachanda faction and Oli faction. Mr. Oli is the current caretaking person, or the caretaking government in the power position, to which he started appointing few people in the government. Though he is a caretaking government which doesn't have power, he went ahead and still appointed some key positions in the party and the government, to which the Prachanda faction took out huge rallies and caused some chaos in the capital. So the Nepalese Communist Party members are still fighting over who will be the future president of the Nepalese Communist Party and the Prime Minister of Nepal. We have to wait few more days to see who will come out as winner. India gave out a statement that we are closely watching the developments and engaging with all parties involved, but we are not going to get involved in the domestic politics of Nepal. Thank you. Have a good day.